And welcome. First item on the agenda this evening is the apologies, item 59. Do we have any this evening? Thank you very much indeed. Next item is the minutes of the previous meetings, and tonight, unusually, we've got three sets of minutes. We've got minutes of the 17th of September, the 20th of September, and also the 27th. So we'll take the 17th of September. Everyone content with those, or any corrections? All those in favour? The 20th of September, any questions or comments? All those in favour? No one in favour? And the minutes on the 27th of September, any questions or queries? All those in favour? Thank you. Okay. Next item is item 61, declarations of interest. Councillor Munro.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to declare my interest as a fully non-executive director of the BBC Holdings Centre. Item 64. Yeah.
Item 64.
Yeah.
Councillor Pollock.
I similarly have a personal interest, human interest in the item because I'm chair of the Optus Holding Company.
Councillor Murphy.
Thank you, and I wish to declare a personal interest in item 64, shareholders' report by virtue of the fact I'm paid non-executive director of Optus.
Councillor Pauline Jorgensen.
I'd also like to declare a declaration along the same lines because I'm non-executive director of the holding company.
Councillor Norman Jorgensen.
A personal interest in that my wife is a non-executive director of the holding company. So item 64 as well. We need a recording.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay, moving on to item 62 this evening, which is the public question time, and a period of 30 minutes is allowed for public questions this evening. So the first question this evening is from Paul Fishwick. Welcome back again, and nice to see you again.
Thank you. Is this switched on?
It is switched on, and I just remind you that the meeting is filmed, but obviously you're not on film.
Yeah, sure. Right. Good evening, members. My name is Paul Fishwick. And my question is to the Executive Member for Highways and Transport. I first reported streetlight number 5, Robin Hood Lane, opposite Withers Railway Station, as being out on the 15th of November 2017, as can be seen from the screenshot provided to the Council. As this report is now coming up for its first anniversary, I would like to know what action, if any, has been carried out since I reported this fault. As a regular user of Withers Railway Station, I have not witnessed this streetlight functioning since I first reported it, and it is still out at the time of submitting this question, and it's still out tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. The problem with this particular streetlight is with the cabling which is provided by Scottish and Southern Electricity Power Distribution, and it has been reported to them on numerous occasions, but unfortunately, as you're obviously aware, it hasn't yet been resolved. And I will take it up again and get the officers to talk to the relevant company to get them to fix it, but it's not quite in my gift to go down with a screwdriver and sort it out, but I will do what I can, and obviously with the winter nights coming in, getting it resolved is obviously important.
Do you have a supplementary question?
I do, thank you. It appears that this important streetlight opposite Withers Station that caters for approximately 450,000 passengers per annum has been neglected by Woking Borough Council. I reported 4 streetlights out, 23, 24, 25 and 26 King Street Lane on the 4th of September this year, and these were repaired by Scottish and Southern because they had a cable fault. How can Woking Borough Council improve its service to the residents and travelling public in the future and not have a repeat of the neglected lamp column number 5 in Robin Hood Lane?
As I said earlier, the issue fundamentally is with the company providing the power and cabling, and they have to resolve it. But I'll take it up and I will get you a written answer as to when I expect something.
this evening is from Rachel Chipper.
Hello, I've got a question for the Executive Member for Highways and Transport. I asked a question in February about the Memorandum of Understanding which the Council and Network Rail signed in 2016 to develop a solution to the Tandhill Lane crossing. This crossing currently has 2 separate bridges, including a steep and unsightly temporary bridge which is very inconvenient for residents. Keith Baker told me that the Memorandum of Understanding states that Network Rail and Woking Borough Council will collaborate on a permanent ramp footbridge solution upon the progression of development proposals for the multi-storey car park and the life exploration of the existing stepped footbridge over Gatwick to Reading line. The multi-storey car park has been open for some time now, but the unsightly and inconvenient temporary bridge is still in place. Could the Executive Member for Highways and Transport please provide an update on what action the Council is taking to progress this project and when residents can expect to see a permanent ramp footbridge in place?
Thank you for your question. As previously stated, you're correct that the Council and Network Rail have entered into a memorandum of understanding. The purpose of this is to record the parties' intention to work in a spirit of mutual trust and cooperation, which isn't often forthcoming with the railway companies, associated with the aim of delivering a ramp footbridge over the railway at Townhouse Railway Crossing. In line with Network Rail's current policies, the responsibility for the delivery of the new bridge over the London line is indicated to be acceptable to replace what was effectively, they call it at grade, but what it basically means is you walk over the line, which is probably more dangerous than the bridge that's there now. The at grade pedestrian crossing, as the existing bridge over the Guildford line is not yet due for replacement or upgrade. And I suspect the need is a bridge that spans both lines rather than just one. The Council is of the view that improved facilities of both the London and Guildford lines accommodating pedestrians and cyclists is more beneficial to users. In respect of costs for the delivery of the new bridge, temporary or permanent, are also covered within the Memorandum of Understanding as follows. Network Rail will wholly fund the temporary stepped bridge, and both Network Rail and WBC will approach funding collaboratively in respect of the permanent ramp footbridge solution. This is a Network Rail pedestrian bridge, and unfortunately they've made no movement to progress in the current position. As there is no budget available, from us at least, it will struggle to be prioritised from our end, but I will try and get some information out of Network Rail and see if I can let you know in due course, but I'll keep you informed. Okay?
That's great, thanks.
Thank you. Do you have a supplementary?
I do, yes, thanks. I think we're all agreed that money is going to be an issue and the need to coordinate with Network Rail is going to be an issue. When I raised this question back in February, Keith Baker acknowledged that still money could possibly be used to finance the funding of the permanent bridge. I am concerned that we don't seem to have had any real action taken since 2016 when the Memorandum of Understanding was signed to find solutions and to progress the building of a permanent ramp footbridge. And this is leaving local residents with an eyesore temporary bridge which many people can't use. Will Council commit to approaching Network Rail within the next 6 months to establish a publicly available plan of action and timescales for the building of a permanent bridge which meets the requirements of the Disability Discrimination Act for accessibility?
I'm happy to approach Network Rail, and I will do it almost immediately. However, as they have to be party to any decisions, I doubt it is whether I can give you the timescales, etc., that you request, but I will try.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed for your questions. The next question tonight is from Keith Marvin.
Thank you. I'm one of the few members of the executive I can actually hear in the back. So, thank you. I have a question for you, and it runs like this. I'd like to ask a question on item 65, the revenue monitoring report. That's a familiar subject. I'm surprised to see under corporate services a cost pressure from increased business rates at Shoot End and other corporate properties. What steps has the council taken or intends to take to reduce the cost pressure?
Thank you very much for your question. I'm sure that you will have been aware that nationally business rates were reassessed in 2017.
Was the council aware of that?
This resulted in many properties being revalued, and this included the council's operational estate. And as we have quite a large building here, it mainly included Shoot End. As such, the council was required to pay more business rates on its corporate properties. In 2017-18, Business Services was able to absorb this cost into its budget, but following a review of budgets during phase 1 and 2, phase 1 of 21st Century Council, the service no longer holds the capacity in the budgets to pay for the increased business rates. Therefore, this is creating pressure in the 2018-19 financial year, and in future years' budgets, it will be increased to cover the statutory pressure. So that's the pressure that you're seeing through at the moment. Do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, I think I do. Well, you've referred, I think, to the large building that we're sitting in now, and recognising that the potential shape of local government may well change in the coming years. I was hoping that you would perhaps have considered looking again at the option of moving out from this site and allowing this site to be used for another priority of this council, which is truly affordable housing. Will you consider that?
Thank you very much for your supplementary. We continue to look at all of our assets right across the council. Council holds many assets, including things like car parks, etc. And we have to provide value for money across everything that we do for our whole entire community. And we will work with all of our partners through things like One Public Estate. That means working with our police, health partners, the voluntary sector, town and parish councils, to see how we can work to make sure that we're all using our assets appropriately, so that we all get best value for money. And if that means looking at this building, then that's what we'll also be doing.
I can help you there. Thank you very much.
Okay. The next section of meetings is item 63, which is member question time. We've got 20 minutes for this section, and I think we've got 8 different questions. So the first one this evening is from Councillor Rochelle Shepherd-Delay, and it's for Councillor Munro.
When is the Borough Design Guide scheduled to be updated to reflect the changes in the borough, including increasing car ownership and renewable energy requirements for new builds?
Thank you for your question, Rochelle. The Borough Design Guide, you're quite right, was adopted as a supplementary planning document to the core strategy in 2012. Through the establishment of design principles, the guide assists our decisions, enhances the quality of development, and ensures that proposals are of the highest quality of design. That means inclusive, safe, harmonious, welcoming, all the good stuff that's in the guide. As a supplementary document, design principles and sustainability ambitions within it need to be underpinned by our local plan policies, and an evidence base is required to support these policies. Since these are currently being reviewed, as you'll see later in the agenda, as part of our local plan update, the logical time to review the guide would be alongside this process. This will mean that any amendments reflect our updated planning strategy and management policies when these are established. The appropriateness of the parking standards could similarly be reviewed on this basis.
Do you have a supplementary?
Well, as Simon can probably remember, and as every member of the Executive for Highways can remember, that I'm always after trying to get at least 2 spaces per dwelling, because the realistic idea is that Wokingham has the highest first car ownership, the highest, second car ownership, and third car ownership in the country. What are we going to do before we have Carmageddon in these new developments, which has actually gone on right now? If you go to any new development you're going to, you will see cars parked all over the place because it's inadequate parking. The standards are not adequate for purpose. So when is it going to change?
I totally agree with you.
We can't say we don't disagree.
The next question, I think we all agree. The next question is from Councillor Shepherd-Delay, and it's for Councillor Weeks.
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to truncate my question because I was having a bit of a rant when I wrote it. This week in our planning meeting, I saw housing applications being approved for developments that only provide for just over one car. I think I've seen them coming up. One car parking space per home. These are often in locations where there is scant provision for public transport and very few services nearby. I've seen housing plans for even less than one space per home in Woking with the excuse of things like it's near the train station. Experience shows that we end up with too many cars for the spaces provided. I'd like to know what Woking Borough Council now and in the future is going to do to stop the chaos and parking problems continuing.
Okay, good. Thank you for your question. It sounds very similar to the last question. The WBC has an adopted parking strategy, as you're aware, and this was consulted on and approved by members as formal council policy. All recommendations to the planning committee are based on a full assessment of all the material considerations, including the relevant current parking standards, and the planning committee need to take those into account when determining planning applications. Schemes presented at the committee would normally be determined in accordance with the council's current prevailing parking standards, unless there was a very clear reason to vary those. That would need to be set out in the committee report and entirely proven and justified. We are currently in the process of updating our local plan, and through this process we will carefully consider the appropriateness of the current standards as we go forward and whether they need to be reviewed.
Do you have a supplementary?
Sure, yes. Well, I see that that's very well intended and things, and I understand what it is, but in practice I feel that it's not happening. But I particularly don't see it happening with properties that we have control of, things like WH Bill, particularly around Carnival Pool and the Peak Pace development, things like this. The parking we put in those places is going forward is inadequate. And if we don't put our own standards, make sure that we stick to the standards ourselves, how on earth do we expect third-party developers to do the same?
Okay. Well, I think in response to that, I would say that where we have varied the standards, there's a justification for that. So for instance, as you've already mentioned, properties built very close to the station will generally not be required to have the same formal parking standards as properties that are not easily within public transport links. But as you probably know, Councillor Ferris is your representative on the local plan update group, and as he knows me well, I think we will I'll be happy to work collaboratively with him and with Councillor Munro to ensure that parking standards are something that are looked at as we go through the local plan update.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm not sure if Councillor Duran is here this evening. No? Yes. He'll receive a written response to this question. Councillor Inglesby.
Hi, John. Good evening. My question is for the Executive Member for Highways and Transport. Shouldn't all new roads include both a cycleway and a footway alongside at the time the route is built, rather than trying to retrofit these at a later date?
Thank you for your question. I think that putting cycleways on some of our current roads, which weren't built recently, is a sensible thing to do. I understand the sense of your question going forward and looking at new roads. However, it will need to be considered at the planning stage, because there's no point trying to do it after the stage when you're planning the new roads. And obviously we have to ensure that we have relevant SIL monies or development contributions available. And also it's been linked in that the decision has to be linked to the planning policies that we have available. So I think maybe it's another thing for the local plan update to consider. That I think is how I see us going forward.
Quite a good response, actually.
Do you have a supplementary?
Yeah. The new Shinfield British Road, from what many call the Black Horse roundabout, is accompanied by both a footway and a cycleway down to the small roundabout at the Sunspot. Why have the footway and cycleway not continued down to the junction with the Hartfield Road at Magpie and Parrot, despite the fact there's bags of room both sides of the road, especially given that the expected several thousand housing site just along the road will farm?
Firstly, Hall Farm wasn't on anyone's radar when the Eastern Relief Road was designed. Secondly, the reason for the cycle and footway down the first mini roundabout is because of the Science Park, which was part and parcel of the application for the first phase of that relief road. It had to go in the bridge over the motorway and the relief road down to that first roundabout was actually necessary to give access to the Science Park, given that the Science Park is a University of Reading facility, and obviously people are going to and from the main university campus, and therefore a lot of people perhaps would like to use their bicycle or walk a distance perhaps. So that's why it was incorporated into that. As far as the rest of the Eastern Relief Road is concerned, when it was conceived, it was very much a relief road and not an ordinary estate road. And as I said earlier, the fact that Hall Farm at that stage, 3 or 4 years ago, was not on anyone's radar as coming through as to a major development. I'm afraid if Hall Farm happens and we consider it necessary to put a footway and a cycleway, then I'm afraid we are going to have to retrofit it.
Thank you very much indeed. The next question this evening is from Councillor Hudgens.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. My question is for Norman. RE3 have been charging for DIY household waste since September 2016. This has been against the advice of 2 Conservative Cabinet Ministers and some junior ministers. Can you advise me when RE3 will be taking the advice of your very senior colleagues and ceasing making these charges, which, as you know, may well be unlawful?
Thank you for your question. Firstly, just to state that RE3 does not charge for household waste, so your question is incorrect. RE3, as you're aware, is the waste management partnership between Bracknell, Reading and Woking councils and manages the recycling centres in Bracknell and Reading. Like all local authorities, RE3 has a statutory duty to provide waste management services for household waste, but in common with other councils, the RE3 partner councils have introduced charges for the disposal of non-household wastes, such as soil, rubble and so on. If, on the other hand, you're proposing to stop charging for this waste, then please tell me how much you'll increase the council tax by to compensate for the loss of this income.
Do you have a supplementary?
Yes, I do. There are several councils that disagree with RE3 policy and do not charge for what is described as DIY household waste, and that's a description that comes from your own government. So I'm very disappointed that you're not changing your policy. Let's see what the current Secretary of State says, because I haven't had a reply from him yet. If he says that you shouldn't be charging for DIY waste, will you urge RE3 to change their policy?
If the government, changes legislation so that we can't charge, then clearly we'll follow that legislation. RE3 charges, just to be clear, for the following sorts of things, just to read from their policy. Things like bricks, breeze blocks, concrete, cement, drainage pipes, gravel, hardcore, paving slabs, rubble, sand, sanctuary, slates, stone, tarmac, tiles. So it's all those sorts of things that RE3 charges for. In the Controlled Waste Regulations 2012, it states that waste from construction and demolition works, including preparatory work, is defined as industrial waste. While in opposition, Liberals will say just about anything to gain a few votes. But once in power, they change their tune.
Answer the question, not make a statement.
Cornwall Council, I'm answering your question. Cornwall Council, you asked about other councils. Cornwall Council, which is controlled by a Liberal Independent Alliance, also charges for waste, as does the Liberal controlled Portsmouth City Council. Taking plasterboard as an example, Cornwall charges £4 a bag, Portsmouth £6 a bag, and RE3 £3 a bag. In Portsmouth, a decision was made on the 22nd of September 2016 to commence charging. The Liberals complained about this and said it should be reversed. The Liberals then took control of Portsmouth City Council earlier this year.
Very recently.
Surprise, surprise, on the 13th of July 2018, the Liberal Democrat Cabinet Member for Environment and Community Safety considered a paper on the future of charging for the waste and took the decision to continue with the charges. So just look at your own colleagues before you start whinging about other people. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're all a bit more informed after that. Councillor Bray. Question for Councillor Fawley and the Simons.
Hello, morning. The revenue monitoring report shows a predicted overspend for this year for children's services that is 790,000 higher than the overspend that was predicted in July. And all of it comes in social work and early intervention services, which in July was predicted to have no overspend. The notes suggest this is due to increased staffing costs. What has happened to cause these sudden and clearly unanticipated additional costs?
Thank you very much. I must emphasise that this is not the fault of any of our officers or anyone in particular. The predictions in July assumed that any increase in staffing costs would be met by savings elsewhere in the children's social care budget. This has proved not to be the case, because increases in activity and numbers of children requiring assessment, looked after children, and those subject to child protection plans has grown considerably. In addition, the recruitment of staff to meet these demands and have manageable caseloads has had to rely on the use of agency workers, who are considerably more expensive than permanent employees. In the medium term, we're planning to deliver more effective alternatives to care strategies and develop a further recruitment and retention initiative that will make Wokingham an even more attractive place for social workers and others to work in. And we've set up a working party to look at this. There will be an interim report on its work at the November Children's Services Scrutiny Committee.
Do you have a supplementary?
I do, yes. Somewhat similarly to the question that Keith Morgan asked, this sounds like a little bit of slightly over-optimistic budgeting in the first place, but I think perhaps realistically, how much of the total overspend, which is 996,000, do you think you'll be able to claw back by the end of March, at the end of the financial year?
I can't be absolutely certain about that, but I can assure you that we are exploring a number of measures, both short-term and longer-term. The longer-term strategies obviously won't deliver any successful result this year, but over the next 2 or 3 years they might well do, or they will do. One example of that is building more homes within the borough for future special needs children, not those who are currently outside, because they are in stable places and can't really be moved. And there will be more information on our various strategies in due course. This is something that we are concerned about and are genuinely working on.
Thank you very much. Next question is from Councillor Lindsay Ferris.
This is for you, Charlotte. On the 20th of September for Council meeting, I asked the following supplementary question under agenda item 54. My question related to a number of contracts, including the joint Wokingham Borough Council and Wokingham Town Council contract covering the recent marketplace refurbishment. Can you confirm how much of the contingency above the £3.8 million originally allocated has already been used by each council? As of Friday the 19th of October, I have yet to receive the courtesy of reply. In fact, I still haven't. However, on page 55, under agenda item 66, capital monitoring, I was perplexed and somewhat annoyed to find the answer to my question has been included within the recommendation section, which states, quote, £200,000 increased contingency match funding contribution from Wokingham Town Council for the Wokingham Town Centre improvements is now included in the capital budget. This then clearly indicates that both Wokingham Town Council and Wokingham Borough Council are to pay an extra £200,000 each to cover the additional requirement over and above the original 3.8 million, taking the cost of the marketplace refurbishment to £4.2 million. Are there likely to be any additional costs over and above this £4.2 million figure? And if so, when and how are we to be advised of this figure?
Thank you very much indeed. So the original construction budget for this scheme was £3.8 million, with a contingency amount to be agreed of £400,000. The construction costs are split between Woking Borough Council and Woking Town Council on an equal basis. The additional £200,000 in the capital budget is Woking Town Council's share of the contingency. It has now been drawn down to match the Woking Borough Council contingency. To date, there has been a £4.1 million spent already. There is an amount of £360,000 in dispute, and it's hoped that the final settlement amount will be contained within the budget, including the contingency. But this is very much depending on the final resolution, and there may be some cost pressures on the budget going forward. So at this time, I don't have the final figure, but I expect to have that early December.
Would any additional costs over and above £4.2 million be provided on a matched funding basis?
I can't give you that answer at the time because we are still in negotiations with Balfour Beatty and WSP, and as I said, we are discussing about £360,000. So I'll know about early December time and then be able to give you an answer about that. Okay, thank you. One last question from Councillor David Hare to Councillor Richard Slinsky. You've got about 2.5 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Charlotte. I'd like to ask Mr. Slinsky, as Executive Member of Adult Social Care, Wellbeing and Health, to question in my EMA to my name.
Okay. We welcome the addition. We welcome the additional allocation of funding from central government for adult social care. We will review how this can support our frontline staff, equipment, commissioning of packages of care. In addition, we will continue to monitor the current strong performance of our Better Care Fund service, which supports the responsive discharges, including the envisaged demands over the coming winter period.
Do you have a supplementary?
Yes. The extra funding is probably too late to recruit many short-term staff to help with the winter pressures because they just can't. John Redwood, from what he wrote about this, implied that you'll be improving the services that the council are giving, but won't most of this money mainly be going to be used to reduce the deficit rather than provide extra services?
No, I mean, yes, you're right, the letter arrived it was dated the 17th of October. We were waiting to see what strings were attached to it. Basically, the letter from the Secretary of State for Health and Social Care has told us that the money's got to be spent on DTOC, delayed transfer of care. And we're actually working up a scheme to be able to deliver on that. But as you know, DTOC requires us working with our health partners and the voluntary sector. Therefore, it would be prudent for us to actually spend that £400,000, £401,000.
500.
We've got to be prudent that we actually spend that money wisely. So we are actually working on a plan, and it's actually a plan that I welcome the Liberals to actually be involved in as well. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Okay, so thank you to everyone who has come along and asked questions this evening. And now we move on to the substantive agenda items. And the first one is item 64, which is the shareholders report. And that's on the companies. I'll hand over to Councillor Stuart Monroe.
Thanks, Charlie. This is the regular report that comes to executive from our companies and covers both our housing companies and our adult care services company Optilis, which Michael Anthony presented over there. I don't think there's anything terrific to report other than that had a really good run, building lots of new homes, and also working housing in Milton Road to pay off $1 million of its operational loan back to the council. So it started to do the right things. What we're doing now is probably changing gear to look at what we might be able to send those companies into a sort of higher demand-led production unit. So this will change over time, but good start, and I don't think any great surprises in here. The recommendation is for the executive to note the figures.
Councillor Pauline Robertson.
I've just had a couple of updates since this report has been produced, just to let you know that work has actually started on the Tate Lane site. So that's good news. And we're working very hard on producing new housing. The other thing is that Broadway House will give an extra 10 units of 10 accommodation in January 2019. So that's another thing that's moving ahead since this report.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Pollock.
Thank you, yes. Turning to Optilis, the Optilis continues to see good qualifications when the services are inspected by the Quality Commission, and that's an improvement on about 18 months ago, and a number of them are requiring improvement, so a big turnaround there. Staff turnover continues to be low, especially compared to national average. Again, it's come down by over half since the last 18 months since the new chief exec has taken over. He's also done quite a bit of work promoting the company to other councils and writing articles in national press. We've participated in the Grants Thornton publication recently, and all that has improved the public perception of the wider professional community of Optilis. So that's a recognition of how our company is being received and it's all being used. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. I think it's worth saying here, you mentioned about good results for CQC, and it really is worth commending the company for that. They've had some really stunning CQC results. Rich and I went on a visit the other day to home here and working on caring for dementia patients, the care that they're providing, the activities were absolutely amazing, and the pride that people have in working for Optilis is something that's really remarkable, which has actually led to much lower rates of sickness and higher rates of retention within the staff as well. So I think that's worth saying. So the report recommendations on page 29. So the executive is asked to make the budget monitoring position for the month ending the 31st of August and the operational update for the period up to the 31st of August 2018. All those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. Okay, the next item this evening is the revenue monitoring report end of September 2018. The recommendations for this paper on page 39. It's worth noting that things have moved on quite substantially since this report was put together. I'll first of all hand over to some of the exec members to talk about this. So I'll start with Richard.
Thank you, Chair. In adult social care, the adverse variance was 800, but we're making significant progress into reducing that number even further. I can't give you the exact figure that we will actually end on, because obviously within adult social care we don't know what's on the horizon in terms of pressure of demand that might come through our door, but officers are working very, very hard to address that number, but without actually making any cuts, which is an important point to make. Where we're showing to be making efficiencies or savings is really in the amount of people that might go into care homes. Many more of our residents are now staying at home, where they actually can receive, I would say, better care, and their life expectancy is actually longer. That's a proven fact. So there's a lot of very positive things that are happening.
So if I could add to that, I think and Pauline will remember this, we have had a long-term plan to ensure that people can receive services in their own home, going back to sort of 2002, 2003, and therefore the development of our home care services is supporting that so that it's more cost effective. A lot of those services are being delivered to Optimus, which also goes back to the comment you made earlier. And when my mother was towards the end of her life, received care from Optimus, so it was first rate, and really super to see and the care she got from it was.
I'd like to update the current situation with regard to children's services, because there is a massive challenge in increasing demand in children's services, because there are just simply more children needing them. Just to give a few examples, we've got more looked after children in the borough. That's been an increase of 1/3 since this time last year. There are more coming through our front door. It's now between 800 and 900 a month, which again is an increase on this time last year. Therefore, there's more need for fostering. There are more children out of the borough, therefore more home to school transport costs. There are more children with complex needs who are living longer. Government legislation means that we now have to look after children until they're, or young people until they're 25 now, not 18 if they're in our care. There are increased costs of residential care. These are just a few of the pressures on the service, and we'll continue to have those increasing numbers, and we have got a statutory duty to fulfil to safeguard these youngsters. Turning to the ongoing pressure in the high needs block, which is referred to on page 41, again, the number of pupils with special educational needs has risen by almost 15% in the last 2 or 3 years, as you can see from the report. The proportion of those with social, emotional and mental health or autistic spectrum disorder is increasing in Woking Borough beyond the numbers seen nationally and indeed across the whole of the South East. There are insufficient suitable placements within the borough, and this results in an increasing reliance on very expensive, independent, out-of-borough provision. That, as I mentioned earlier, has increased the pressure on council-funded home-to-school transport budgets. As I said earlier in answer to Councillor Bray's question, we are looking to build more places within the borough, but children that are currently out of the borough are in settled places and they can't really be moved back into the borough, so it'll be 2 or 3 years at least until we see some return on any investment we put into that. But I do want to assure you that a lot of work is being done to address these pressures, and there will be cost reductions this year, but more sustainability in the longer term.
Thank you. The position as it stands today is much more favourable than is reported, and I think it's good to note that the third quarter, as is seen every year, we start to see swings the other way in terms of the budget, as some areas come in underspent and some things are released back into the budget. I think also it's worth noting that at month 6, as we are currently in budget, only 48% of our revenue has been already spent, whilst we are seeing year-end position looking like it is going to be adverse. At this point, it's worth noting that that's the spend profile at the moment. So what I would say is there's lots of very good work going on with executive members and also with officers, and I know that you'll continue to do that all the way through the year, so thank you very much indeed. So the recommendations are on page 39. It's to note the Q2 position of the revenue budget and the level balances in respect to the general fund, housing revenue account, schools block and the authority's investment portfolio. Recommendation 2, to note that there are no carry forwards estimates to the general fund identified at this stage, and to note the updates in recommendation 3 on the adult social care action plan and the children's services action plan, previously the high needs block action plan. All those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. The next agenda item is item 66, which is the capital monitoring 2018-19, end of September. There is a small variance in the capital budget at the moment. When it's seen in the scheme of the capital budget for this year is 134 million. It's not very large in proportion to that. Anyone have any questions or comments that they'd like to make? Councillor Pollock.
Sorry. How I draw your attention to the estimated number of overspends on page 59, which show that in the whole scheme of 222 million, we're not expecting any overspend at all, and therefore presumably the changes for the current year are simply a reprofiling of what was planned to be spent next year. And therefore, actually, there isn't one in the whole scheme of things. It's not really overspent on the whole capital programme.
Thank you. And we continue to reprofile the capital programme as we go forward. As it gets reprofiled, the borrowing costs go down, and that releases money back into our budgets. So the recommendations are on page 55. I won't read them all out. There are 3 recommendations. All of those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. Unanimous. Next item this evening is the local plan update, which is on page 61 to 150.
This is a fairly comprehensive report, lots of pages here, but it's really to give an idea of where we're at in the process, to lay out the plan of consultation. And this time we're going to do real consultation. We've got about 10 vendors that are being organised to do this consultation. And this is to seek approval to go ahead and do that consultation. As we stand, we move towards over 300 sites that we're looking at. We expect that to grow as the consultation goes on. And so I think the real purpose of this is to talk to the residents and explain to them why we're doing this. And the reason that we're doing this is so that we can look at what their views are on the sites that we put forward, and also to understand what their needs are. And they're fairly clearly coming through to us in the consultations that we've had in the past. So really this is about getting everything to understand that we go to the next stage of consultation. It's going to go from November through to February. And we're hoping we can get everybody to come on. Every household in the borough will receive a pack explaining what is going to be discussed with the covering letter. So happy to take any questions.
Councillor Pollock.
I've got a couple of questions. Are the council's own sites in this list? And secondly, why are we doing this? Since certainly my residents are fed up with housing and the associated traffic congestion. We've had public meetings where they're getting quite upset and cross and have said, why don't we just zone that?
Well, that's a very good point, and I've certainly been to some of those meetings as well. Councillor Pollock, I would say that the reason that we're doing it is it's good to do so, to continue to review what our plans are, and also what we want to do so by law. And if we don't do this, then the people just kind of by appeal just get a permission to put things wherever they are. I do take the point about the congestion. That's a very big issue, something that we are urgently looking at, as you know. We can talk about this week a lot. Why are we doing it? It's also because we do understand in the process of doing this, we are consulting with the residents, getting their views, and we're certainly getting loud and clear that we've got big time and congestion problems. So get that.
The local, our sites, the council sites?
Oh yes, yes, I can confirm that some of our sites are in there. I think there's about 39 of them at the moment, yes.
Councillor Robinson.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It's largely following up on Anthony's question about why we're doing it, but my question really is why we're doing it now. We've got a plan that runs till 2026, so why do this one now?
Yeah, we are required to constantly review that plan to see if it's still valid. The core strategy was designed to go to circular usage, you're quite right, but we have to continually review that process, otherwise the plan that we're using is not considered to be current, and therefore will be viewed poorly against us in views of inspectors saying, you know, we're not looking at this process properly. So that's why we do it continuously, that's why we're going through this one, which is 2026 and beyond.
Councillor Weeks.
A few of us last Friday met with the Chief Planner from the Ministry of Housing and Local Government, and whilst he was very positive about the fact that we've got a structured local plan which is enabling us to deliver houses in the right places, he made it, I think, very clear to all of us that it's absolutely essential that we have an up-to-date and frequently updated plan in order to continue to be able to direct where the housing numbers need to go that are being imposed on us by central government. I thank you, Munro, for agreeing to have a consultation venue in my ward of Finchhamstead, because obviously we've got a lot of houses going in there. Are you able to confirm how many of these public consultations will take place to supplement the pack that's gone out to everyone? Because obviously there's only a subsection of community that actually wants to go into the detail that will be covered by those consultations, public ones.
Yeah, I think we just add another 2, so I think that takes us past 10 across the area. Some of the venues, with advice of local vendors, have been amended. So, for example, in Sheffield, we're actually going to use the Rye Sports Hub as the parish council has asked us to use that because it's more in the middle of their patch. So they've been reviewed, but we should get that sorted out certainly by the end of next week.
Thank you. I think one of the reflections from meeting with the Chief Planning Officer last Friday was very much if you don't do a local plan and you don't update it regularly, it's very much it will be done to you and you won't have a choice over which sites you put in. Central government have a budget to do it to you and impose it upon you, and it's very much this start of this consultation is about our local residents having choice, having a voice about where they would like to see housing in the future. So I'd urge everybody to take part in this consultation. It is your opportunity to have your say about where you would like your new homes of the future to be, new facilities, and get involved. There are other authorities that may sit back and choose not to do this process, and the government will have a budget and they will send in a team of planners, and they will take a local plan all the way through to the inspection process for you, and we want to be proactive here, and we are saying please get involved. So I urge everybody, when that flyer comes through your letterbox, please find the venue that's closest to you and get your views across. So the recommendations for this report are on page 61, and the executive is advised to approve the local plan update towards our strategy for consultation, including supporting engagement activities, and those details will be available once they're all up to date. And authorise the Director of Corporate Services and the Director of Locality and Customer Services in consultation with the Executive Member for Business, Economic Development and Strategic Planning to agree minor amendments if necessary prior to the consultation. And recommendation 3 to adopt the Local Development Scheme 2018. All those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. And that concludes this evening's meeting. Thank you all very much indeed for your time.